29 minutes, 3 seconds. That's how long I spoke. That's how long my recording was. Only to realize that the sun was again shining down on my face, and I felt that it was what's the word? Too distracting. So here we go again. Chapter 35. First, on being a husband who has children. The father's duty to his children cannot be transferred to the mother. If she performs her own duty, she has burden enough to bear. This is only relevant if the mother is performing her duty, as we have studied already, in every particular. If she is truly doing everything she needs to do, their minds, the teaching, the character, the praying, the practical lessons, the being patient when they're nagging, it's enough as it is. So men should not then give to their wives things or duties or burdens rather that they should be carrying. I know we will come to it in chapter 36, but I'll bring it here. There are many times or in many families where the fathers don't do what she says they must do, which is to make sure that they find useful employment for the children to do throughout the day. It's still on mommy. So mother does all the mother's duties, and she also takes over this part as well. And there are other things where she says the father must get close to them, know them, understand them. In many families that doesn't really happen. It's the mothers, if any of them do, who work hard at trying to know them. This is a father's work. A man's work is not only to go and get money, it's also to be a father, to father his children. And he should not give that role to the mother of his children, otherwise he's overburdening her. Only by working in unison can the father and mother accomplish the work which God has committed to their hands. Having a child is not some selfish desire to, have your seed, have someone to inherit from you. It is a job that God has given you, and it has roles and responsibilities which we actually can't outsource. It only has to come from us for it to be acceptable to God. Whatever may be his calling and its perplexities, so much of this is repetitive. Be smiley, be cheerful, that I am reading very few from each chapter, and that's why I've joined them up. Whatever may be his calling and his perplexities, let the father take into his home the same smiling countenance and pleasant tones with which he has all day greeted strangers and visitors. The respect and now this is for all of us, the respect we give to strangers is the same respect we should give to our wives and husbands. And in fact, we should give them more respect because we chose them to play a very, very, very specific and important role in our lives. I don't know that we do that. I know that I've seen the opposite in too many people's lives, where there's more respect for the colleague than there is for the wife, more respect for whatever friend than there is for the wife, more smiles and courtesy than there is for the wife. Let the wife feel that she can lean upon the large affections of her husband, that his arms will strengthen and uphold her through all her toils and cares, that his influence will sustain hers, and her burden will lose half its weight. She won't be burden free, but at least it will be reduced. If he's there to be sympathetic, empathetic, if he's there to listen, if he's there to mull over problems, if he's there caring, worrying just as much as she's worrying, and if he realizes that her life is one of toil and care. There's this worldly concept, where there are women who say, oh, my husband's been working hard all day. When he comes back, he must relax. But the thing is, those are women who are not doing this work. So obviously, compared to the non-work they are doing, the husband can be pampered and taken care of. The wife had time to cook while the children were at school, if they even have children. The wife had time to do A because someone else was taking of Mary, Susie, and Jane. It's easy. But if both are doing God's work, then the mother's toil is constant. There is no 24, there is no holiday, there is no annual leave, there is no sick leave, there is no family responsibility leave. It's on, all the time. Toils and cares all the time. And let the husband know that his wife can share those toils and cares with him, and he will comfort, strengthen, and encourage, which means he needs to be listening to everything she's saying and taking it on board and trying to view it from her eyes and then trying to find a solution if there is a problem. Domestic duties are sacred and important, yet they are often attended by a weary monotony. The countless cares and perplexities become irritating without the variety of change and cheerful relaxation which the husband and father frequently has in his power to grant her if he chose, or rather, if he thought it necessary or desirable to do so. The life of a mother in the humbler walks of life is one of unceasing self-sacrifice. We know, when I just said now there's no sick leave, and a very perceptive friend of mine said that she felt sorry for me. She's a single mom, her son goes to school, so if she gets sick, she can go home and rest. But that just is not possible if you're a full-time mother. You're at home, but you're not resting, the children are still on you. I have had a stomach bug for the past 2.5 days. It started at night on Sunday night. Today's Tuesday morning. And I have not been able to just rest. I would try and sleep because I didn't sleep for toilet reasons, both ins, mouth, and the other side. I would try and sleep. And even when I've given them something to do, knock, 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 can you please have this? No, you know that you're not allowed to. Again, they go away. 5 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. Ria wants this. Okay, here it is. You try and sleep again. 2 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. Can we please do this? And you just can't rest. You're always up with them, going to give them things or taking care of them or making sure they're having their meal, whatever meal it's meant to be. It's sacrifice because the body needs rest, but it can't and it doesn't. Whereas if you contrast it to my husband, he will come home and I'm still telling them, okay, daddy's sick, don't go into the room. I don't get that interference. The men do, where they actually are allowed to rest. And it's just constant. Even when you're not sick, it is a lot. It is a lot. The life of a mother in the humbler walks of life is one of unceasing self-sacrifice, made harder if the husband fails to appreciate the difficulties of her position and to give her his support. That was a mouthful, and I could have stopped at every sentence and elaborated, but yes, let's go on. We know those domestic duties which people look down upon and think are nothing, menial, useless, don't deserve much praise. Those are sacred. It's a reminder, we've discussed this. Those duties are sacred. But it does become monotonous. Washing dishes every meal, preparing food every meal, dealing with the same problems every meal, the same arguments. So and so is being mean to me. Okay, here's how you handle it. Every single day. And she points out that not enough men realize the necessity of the mother needing a break and a chance to have cheerful relaxation. Not many fathers see the huge responsibility she is bearing, the perplexities. True motherhood is extremely perplexing. Add on other problems. I have friends who have children with special needs. So add that on, and it becomes a heavy millstone around the neck, which the husband has in his power to cut it off her neck just for a while so she can have cheerful relaxation. And she can't have cheerful relaxation at home with the same children there. She needs to be allowed to have something. She needs variety. Variety is not found in the home. Variety is not found within the same with amongst the same children that she's with 24/7. Ask any mother. A holiday is not much of a holiday if they are a stay-at-home mom because they're always with the children. Now they're just parenting in a different place if they go away together as a family. It's not the same as if the mother has been in some office and now finally she's home with the children and they're out to look at the ocean or wherever they've gone. It's constantly mother, mother, mother. Weekends, weekdays. So mothers need dads to look out for them, to choose on their own to give their wives the break they deserve. God says the true mother deserves a break for the wearying monotony. True motherhood is tiring. And another paragraph says the same thing. Okay, let me go up a bit. Yes. He must, yes. So for the husband to realize all of this, he needs to take off the blinkers that is put on, that the world has put on him, the brainwashing that the world has put on him, the brainwashing that the one who earns money is working. That is a lie, a big lie. When you read the Spirit of Prophecy and all those other books, you know what true work is and what God values most in this world. So he needs to appreciate her perplexities, the difficulties of her position. He needs to be supportive. He needs to know she has cares. If he doesn't acknowledge that, how will he then try and reduce the burden? This demands husbands who respect their wives. And that's another thing that this world is short on. Not much is taught about how men should respect their godly, hardworking, God-fearing wives and the work that they do for their children. The husband should manifest great interest in his family, especially should he be very tender of the feelings of a feeble wife. He can shut the door against much disease. Not all, but he can shut the door against much. Kind, cheerful, and encouraging words will prove more effective than the most healing medicines. One of my problems, my psychiatrist, my rheumatologist believes is my life itself is adding to the physical problems I have. If men reduce those burdens, it really would. In my case and in many, we know the brain and the body are combined, are one. What impacts the brain will destabilize the body. And any stress that is constant, chronic, ongoing, incurable, will impact your wife's body. We need to take that into consideration. And then you need to show interest in your family. Don't wait for the mom to say, oh, you know what you did today? Don't wait for your child to say, Dad, look at my school books. You should be saying, hey, what did you do today? Which one was your favorite? Which one did you struggle with? Let's see. Oh, okay, do you understand what went wrong here? Or, oh, I see you. Now you understood, because what I do is I circle whatever is wrong and then ask my daughter to correct it. So then the father could come home and say, all right, so let's not forget. 4 minus 3 is 1. You know all your other facts. It's just, take an interest. And there was another part where it said her influence should be his. He should help sustain her influence. Which means whatever she has stated, he must reinforce. Whatever her rules are, he must also expect the children to abide by. The husband should remember that much of the burden of training his children rests upon the mother, and that she has much to do with molding their minds. This should call into exercise his tenderest feelings. Be honest. How many men sit at work and they think when they've got time, yeah, at this very moment, okay, the husbands of wives who are doing this work, at this very moment, my wife could be having a very tough time with one of our children. And let me pray for her. And when I get home, let me show her with my affections, by being tender and kind and loving, letting her pour out her sorrows, her trials, and the highlights, enjoying with her the things that gave her joy. The highlights, enjoy them too. And it says, this should call into exercise his tenderest feelings, and with care should he lighten her burdens. Are our men thinking, how can I make life easier for my wife? You will do your work, you work at the office. You might come back, do some more emails, work on some projects, and then you'll sit down and play. Whatever Scrabble or Wordscape or whatever the app may be that you're playing on, use that time to think of how to practically lighten her burden. We're talking here about Jacob and how he didn't want to go faster than his children could. He didn't want to walk ahead of them and pull them. Whatever was a comfortable pace for them, that's what he wanted to stick to. He wanted to be his children's support, not for his children to run after him while he leads them, pulls them along like they're thoughtless. He had concern for them. And that's the same thing that husbands need today. Concern for their children, for where they are. If they're struggling with school, don't tell them, what is this? Why did you get a D? That's not how it's done. That's not leading on softly. In life's toilsome way, let the husband and father lead on softly, as the companion of his journey is able to endure. In the same way the children are weaker, the Bible tells us the wife is the weaker vessel. Work with her. Work according to her limitations. Don't push instead of sustaining and supporting and strengthening. Amidst the world's eager rush for wealth and power, let him learn to stay his steps, to slow down, be purposeful, to comfort and support the one who is called to walk by his side. Don't walk ahead of her. Don't push her. Be by her side. Let the husband aid his wife by his sympathy and unfailing affection. If he wishes to keep her fresh and gladsome, so that she will be as sunshine in the home, let him help her bear her burdens. You can't come home, be all morose and sour, and then expect her to be all fresh and happy when you've brought doom and gloom into the home. Only by your love, sympathy, cheerfulness, engagement can she then respond to that and give the same. She needs help. Bear her burdens so that she knows she is seen and loved. Loved is shown in action, not sex. Action that shows love. Action that is sacrificial. Intercourse is not sacrificial. Love that takes away burdens, that is sacrifice. Because if you are taking away her burden, it means you are then the one who is bearing it for her. Intentional husbanding, intentional fatherhood. Chapter 36. The average father wastes many golden opportunities to attract and bind his children to him. Upon returning home from his business, he should find it a pleasant change to spend some time with his children. Spending time with your children, you shouldn't view it as an extra burden. There's something wrong with you if, when you've been away all day from your children, the first thing you think is, oh no, here they are. You need to change. You need to ask God to change your heart, to transform it, make it soft. You need a heart change and a mind shift. Fathers should unbend from their false dignity, deny themselves some slight self-gratification in time and leisure in order to mingle with the children. Give up. In the same way the mother has given self-sacrificially all day and will all night and the next day and the next morning, whatever the day, holiday, whatever, whether you are on leave or not. In the same way she sacrifices her strength and time and mental, and emotional, in the same way she sacrifices her time, her heart, you too should just sacrifice just a bit to be a present, loving father who is bent on bringing the children to your heart. Some men will wake up and say, hey, why don't you greet me? Don't you know that you're meant to greet your elders? That does not lead to any love. It's a false dignity that says you must behave and whatever, obey the patriarchy. The true love will say, hey, my boy, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? Did you sleep well? That is true love. And I don't know if it is a Zimbabwean thing or what it is, but I've only heard Zimbabweans act like that. My dad used to wake me up with the song, woohoo, he'd whistle. I can't remember how he whistled. And then he'd say, Rose, wake up, my baby. You know, it was like that. And he never said, you must be greeting me. How dare you not greet me? It's so unloving. It's so ungentle. If I know that's not a real word. Fathers, be kind, soft, warm. Become their safe space, as we will read further on. It says you must mingle with your children, sympathizing with them in their little troubles, binding them to their hearts by the strong bonds of love, and establishing such an influence over their expanding minds that their counsel will be regarded as sacred. The counsel will be regarded as sacred because it seems as if it comes from the sacred God. And that can only happen if the Father is one with God and then will love what God loves. And what does God want? And what does God love? A sympathetic daddy who listens to their little troubles and sympathizes with them instead of minimizing them and trivializing them or laughing at them. And then boys, the stereotype is that boys are extra active. I have not lived the stereotype with either of my two boys. They're the opposite, but I've seen other boys who are like this. So this is for you. If you're a father of boys who are stereotypical boys, he who has a family of boys must understand that whatever his calling, he is never to neglect the souls placed in his care. Do you see how often she says, whatever your calling, whatever your business perplexity, it doesn't matter. However, it doesn't matter how high you are in the chain of command. When you're home, be home fully. And this time, you must not neglect the souls placed in your care, Dad. He has brought these children into the world and has made himself responsible to God to do everything in his power to keep them from unsanctified associations, from evil companionship. It's a theme that I've said a lot. It's interesting how she never really warns the wives to avoid evil companionships. I think because, as in general, from what I've seen, when a woman is strict, she is strict. There's no, but this one is family, so even if they're evil, but they're family, they are more like Jesus. Remember what Jesus said when they said, oh, Jesus, your mother and your brothers are looking for you. And he said, well, who is my mother and my brother and my father? He that doeth the will of God, the same is my brother and my mother and my sister. Those people matter the most. The ones who are not evil, the ones who are sanctified. And it's easier for women to cut off from the unsanctified, or not to cut off rather, but to not bring them into the children's lives than many men. Just from my observation, I'm sure you live a different observation, a different life, obviously. We all have different experiences, but this is my experience. Men find it harder to keep their children safe from unsanctified associations. Anyway, not only regarding relatives. Pray, ask God to give you that stern integrity, firm integrity that Jesus had. He should not leave his restless boys wholly to the care of the mother. This is too heavy a burden for her. He must arrange matters for the best interests of the mother and the children. I don't know how many men actually think, okay, what's the best interest of my wife and my children? I hear more about plans for work than I hear about plans for the home. He must arrange matters. It may be very hard for the mother to exercise self-control and to manage wisely in the training of her children. If this is the case, if she can't exercise self-control, the father should take more of the burden upon his soul. He has to lighten her burden, so he bears her burden. But if she also is not as sanctified as she could be, then he must take even more of the burden upon himself. He should be determined to make the most decided efforts to save his children. How many men are making every decision based on the salvation of their children, based on giving them as pure as possible an atmosphere, putting them in one, removing every unsanctified influence. Determined means you're sitting there and you're purposing in your heart and you're asking God to help you to be that man. If he is engaged in business which almost wholly closes the door of usefulness to his family, he should seek other employment which will not prevent him from devoting some time to his children. This is serious. Don't sacrifice your children for the sake of a bigger house. It's not worth it. Take the lower salary even. Stay home more than to lose your children because you're following after money. God will always provide the lack. If he neglects them, the children, he is unfaithful to the trust committed to him of God. Fatherhood is deep. It is spiritual. It is a sacred job. This is the one that I mentioned before, that I mentioned in the beginning. The father should not become so absorbed in business life or in the study of books that he cannot take time to study the natures and necessities of his children. Study the children and their necessities, their characters, their natures first, and then you can become absorbed in business life. He should help in devising ways by which they may be kept busy in useful labor agreeable to their varying dispositions. It's the dad's job to study. I mean, the wife already, we know she's also meant to study the children, but he's also meant to join in unison. He's also meant to study and say, okay, Christopher seems to really struggle with this. How about I take him out and we go into nature, as it says later on about taking them into the field. Maybe one-on-one time will help him to really come out of his shell. The dad should be thinking that. Help the mom. Help in devising ways to put them in useful labor, or to keep them, or to help them in devising ways in which they may be kept in useful labor. Father, never should a word of discouragement pass your lips. Do not bring darkness into the home. Be pleasant, kind, and affectionate toward your children, but not foolishly indulgent. Foolishly indulgent is letting them sin and you are happy about it. Foolishly indulgent is rewarding them when they sin, not censuring, not reprimanding, but even giving more than they should be getting. The prodigal son, the father didn't go chasing after him and say, here's some more money, I see you're in the pig pen. The prodigal son had to come and repent first. Don't be indulgent. Let them bear their little disappointments as everyone must. Do not encourage them to come to you with their petty complaints of one another. Oh, that is my life. And mommy, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. I'm so angry, so-and-so did this. It's ongoing, constant. And for me, I say to them, okay, you don't like the noise they make with their mouth? Then go to your room and you won't hear the noise. You don't like that they smiled? Then go to your room and you won't see them smiling. You don't like that they did this? Maybe you could go outside and play, because then you won't see whatever they're doing that's irritating you. Because most of the time it is little disappointments. And we need to train our children to be resilient, to find their own way out of a problem, not to have us always saving them and taking their sides when they don't need the side to be taken. Petty complaints, that's what we're talking about. That is something they should deal with themselves. You can tell them how to deal with their anger. Do you feel angry? Okay, come stand here where it's quiet and breathe and ask Jesus to help you not to retaliate or not to get aggressive when you are irritated by the sound they're making. And the last part, the father. He may take them into the garden and show them the opening buds and the varied tints of the blooming flowers. Through such mediums, he may give them the most important lessons concerning the Creator by opening before them the great book of nature, where the love of God is expressed in every tree and flower and blade of grass. This can't happen if the Father himself doesn't see God in his creation. He needs to love God and be in love with him and be thankful for the gifts he has given. Then he can teach his children. Same thing, like I said, with the mothers. They can't teach what they themselves don't know. He may impress upon their minds the fact that if God cares so much for the trees and the flowers, he will care much more for the creatures formed in his image. A lesson all of us need to remind ourselves of too, because we do have trials as we grow up. They do seem so heavy and we do seem so alone. But God does care. He just doesn't show his care the way we would want him to. But he cares, and we know the end of the story. He may lead them early to understand that God wants children to be lovely, not with artificial adornment, but with beauty of character, the charms of kindness and affection, which will make their hearts bound with joy and happiness. Kindness, affection. That's the lesson children need. Kindness and affection, that's what their wives deserve. Kindness and affection are not so-called masculine traits in this world, according to the world, but they are certainly God. They are God's character. They are Jesus' character. So as we learn, as we read, may we reflect God, God's love, God's kindness, God's affection.